Hey there, this is a recap for session 52 of our Castles and Crusades campaign. We're back with the main group. Good session, interesting session. I had 6 players, so we had the characters Artemis, Sprawl, Barry, Lork, Cosmo, and Ronan for this session. It was nice. Another big group. So we picked up where the last time we saw these guys. They were in the small town of Moss Haven. Their companion, Eudora, who has a lot of knowledge about the Rod of 7 parts and actually gave one of the parts to Sprawl, has been captured by 3 demons, and they flew off to the southwest. And the party is in pursuit. With them is Sir Derek Callenstern, a paladin of Belenos. And they're in pursuit. They're using Unax, which is a character played by Zach, who wasn't at the session. He's tracking them through his owl familiar, so we kind of did that, behind the scenes, where Zach wasn't able to make it and to the session. So they track him into this region. It's some of the outlying farms of the Moss Haven. And they track him to this one farm, and through his familiar, Unax is able to relay to the party that it's a stone farmhouse with a barn. And a distinguishing feature is that next to the barn is a wagon missing a wheel. So they end up finding the place, and it's in the middle of the night. And they find the place. Unax's owl is sitting on top of it, and then we in this part I just kind of had Unax fade to the back. Like, he stayed with the horses. The party was sneaking in as best they could on foot. Some of the characters are really good at stealth, like Lork and Cosmo, and everybody else not so much. They sneak in. They split up a little bit, with Cosmo and Artemis checking out the barn, which we'll get into in a minute. Lork making his way towards the house, and as he's crossing this open front yard, he sees a light pass in the window, and he sees a man with a lantern walking around. But he's able to remain stealthy, and he makes a mad dash and makes it up to the house and is basically hiding beneath the window to stay out of view. When Ronan tries to sneak up, he actually, his attempt to be stealthy failed. So he tripped over a bucket in the yard and made a racket. The man comes out or opens the door, and he's standing in the doorway, and he shines a lantern out. And Ronan had attempted to lay down flat, but he's literally in the middle of the yard with no cover and is spotted. And the man challenges him and tells him, "Get off my land." And instead of just retreating backwards, I think at that point Ronan tried to slink off towards the barn, or he didn't make like an obvious retreat. So the man hung the lantern on a hook outside the doorway of the house, and reaches in and comes out with a crossbow, and the party's like, "Oh, Jesus." And he actually fires a shot at Ronan and hits him, does a little bit of damage. So at that point we rolled initiative with, basically it was between Ronan and this man who appeared like in all intents and purposes, he appeared to be a homeowner defending his property. And we roll initiative. We get tied initiative, so they both go at the same time. The man fires another shot at Ronan, hits him, minimal damage. Even though I think I actually rolled a critical hit, I didn't really hit that hard. Ronan, however, rolls a critical and then rolls another critical, which is the 5th time that's happened in the campaign, and does like 48 points of damage with an arrow and kills this guy. So I described it as it hits him in the neck, pins him to the door frame, and looks like he's dead. This kind of set the tone, I think, for the rest of the campaign, because this sparked a debate within the party, I think, amongst the players themselves and their characters, because part of the party was split with, you just murdered a guy defending his home, because they haven't found any sign of the cultists other than Unax's owl tracked them there. Like, these guys, they haven't seen demons, they haven't seen Eudora, no sign of any of that. So this sparked a really kind of a big debate amongst the party, like with Ronan, like I said, with half the party or a large portion of the party believing that Ronan just murdered this guy. Ronan didn't feel, he's like, hey, he shot at me. And Barrier's kind of the same mind too. Oh, he shot at him. But the other party was like, yeah, he's shooting at trespassers. Like, he looks like a farmer. And so that debate rages on. Lork skirts around. He may have actually done this beforehand. He had skirted around to the back side of the house trying to get a better look in, but all the windows are shuttered. So the man is killed. Sprawl and Sir Derek actually make their way up to the house. At this point, around this point, Artemis and Cosmo are searching the interior of the barn. And we'll talk about that now and get that out of the way. They go into the barn. They find there's half a dozen horses stabled there. Nothing out of the ordinary. They have all the, equipment for riding them and such. But Cosmo does actually search. Actually, the search happened before Artemis even came in. He finds in an empty stall a trap door in the floor. And he explores it a little bit, and it takes it down into the foundations of the basement where later on, a few minutes later, he brings Artemis with him. They search the basement of this foundation. It's not even a basement. And they find the backside of a concealed door that leads outside to the back of the barn. The trap door in and of itself wasn't overly suspicious, because if you've ever been in like a lot of real barns, like old barns, they do have those on occasion that would lead down underneath the foundation. Sometimes livestock would be down there. Sometimes they just put refuse down there to be hoed out later. But the concealed door is definitely weird, and they note that. Meanwhile, back at the house, Ronan and Sprawl and Sir Derek make their way into the house, as does shortly later an invisible Barry. He turns invisible and tries to make his way in the house. They go in the house, and it's a stone ranch, and the first part of it is like a kitchen dining room area, and then the ranch is split in half by a wall, and there's another door, and from beyond that other door, they hear a woman like crying, and when they announce themselves, and they're trying to get her to come out, but she's, there's a lot of debate. She's like, you just murdered my husband. And this reinforces the belief, I think, with the players that thought Ronan just murdered some farmer. And this takes a little bit of time. Like, it takes a little bit for Sprawl to convince her to come out. And then finally, she doesn't come all the way out. The door cracks open, and they see this woman. She's got, tears down her cheeks. And kind of hiding behind her is a little boy wrapped up in a blanket. And they're having this discussion. Ronan, at one point, they actually pulled the guy off the arrow. And Sprawl broke it to do it, which upset Ronan, and who was still out in the yard. But they put him on the table. Sprawl actually attempted to heal him, but he's dead. So a regular, cure wound spell is not going to do anything for him. Then they start really conversing with the family members, and when they get basically Sprawl apologizes. He offers to do what he can. He actually hauls out like a bag full of gold, maybe either compensate or help pay. And that was the thing that came up, was that I know my son who plays Lork was like, Ronan's going to have to pay to get this guy resurrected. Like, we just murdered this guy. He was very much in the camp. Lork was very much in the camp that Ronan had murdered some farmer defending his homestead. He offers him a bag of gold, and he puts the bag of gold down. The little boy kind of walks past him to go look at the body on the table where they placed the man that had been killed by Ronan. And this conversation's going on when all of a sudden Sprawl feels this stabbing pain in his back, and he turns and looks, and the little boy, the blanket had fallen back, and it's actually a halfling, and he's holding a bloody stiletto, and he had stabbed Ronan in the back with a back attack, a roguelike back attack, doing quite a bit of damage. I think it was like 20-something points of damage, plus poison. There was a poison on the blade, so he had to, Ronan made his save, excuse me, I keep mixing those up. Sprawl made his save. He took a little bit of, I think, attribute damage, but not the full brunt of the poison damage. And he turns back and looks at the woman, and she is changing into one of the demons that they fought at the inn in Moss Haven. So the fight is on. I think we rolled initiative. That was a surprise attack. So we roll initiative. I don't remember if, I'm pretty sure they must have actually lost initiative. And I think there was another attack by the halfling disguised as a boy, and the now demon. And Sprawl goes down, like he's down. But before he goes down, actually, he does get a chance. Before he goes down, he casts a spell. I don't remember the name of it, but it basically caused this flame, and he yells at Sir Derek to get out, who's still kind of in the entranceway by the man on the table. He yells him to get out, and so Sir Derek was not quite sure what's going on. He's new to, obviously very new to working with these guys. He just met them like the day before. He backs out of the house, and then Sprawl's spell goes off, and it just like, I don't remember the name of it. It's like this flaming burst spell, and it shoots out in a pretty good radius, but it ignites everything flammable inside the house. So the house is on fire. Barry's in there, and he had tried to get like into the next room, but there was no way for him to do that without being seen. I think he backed out when he heard Sprawl tell Sir Derek, because they didn't know he was even in there. So he backed out when Sprawl told Sir Derek to get out. But party members end up making their way in. Sprawl is down. He's got exactly 0 hit points. Barry uses the magic gourd they got many sessions ago, and it does healing if you drink it. I think it works 1 time a day, and he pours that down his throat and gives him enough hit points to be up and mobile, and they drag him out of there. But this place is now on fire, and there's nothing they can do about it. They don't have any means of putting it out, so this was a debate amongst the party. What do we do? Because the halfling and the demon, they don't come out. They had retreated back into the second part of the house and closed the door and don't come out. So they kind of surround the house, and they end up waiting like 8 or 9 hours. Some of our players actually have background in fighting fires, and so we have pretty good knowledge, realistic knowledge of how long it takes of things to burn out like that, houses and such. So it takes 8-9 hours for them waiting around to the point where they can actually do anything with the ruins. And that's what it is. It's just a smoking ruin. It's during that time, Sir Derek had left to go check on like the surrounding farms. And because one of the things they know is nobody shows up. Like this is a, smoke, fire, middle of the night. Like this would have got attention. If it wasn't for some reason seen during the night, it definitely would have, the smoke would have been seen in the morning, and nobody shows up to investigate, which would be a normal reaction amongst, farmers and such, and locals. They would have tried to come and help each other out. Nobody does that. So they investigate the ruins. They find a trap door in the second half where they had not gotten into, where the woman and the boy were hiding. And they find a trap door on the floor, and it leads, there's a shaft, like a 30-foot shaft with a ladder. So they climb down that, and they're in a cavern system, which is what you see before you. This other part I used as the farmhouse. We actually didn't really use that. Like that whole thing was done theater of the mind. So I actually didn't use this section at all. This was something extra that I didn't end up using. Get that out of the way. But this part we did. So this all took place like in here, and they put the guy there, and the negotiation took place there. Oh, I guess it was funny because I did this all Theater of the Mind, so this was pretty much all covered up. There was a rear door, but I forgot about that, so I didn't give that to them in the description. Whoops. And maybe, I guess at one point I thought there was going to be a second floor, but I ended up describing it as a ranch as we went, just to make things simple. So we didn't end up using this, but in general, this is where it all took place. The man was killed here, put on the table. The negotiation and the surprise attack took place here. Then they find the trapdoor here. And it leads down to here. This we did use, so this is more accurate. The trapdoor leads to here. They come down through here, and with Lork and Artemis kind of in the lead. And coming out of this area is a host of zombies. And they make quick work of those. Barry dropped a fireball on them, I think, and that pretty much just did them all in at once. They're really low hit dice, so not any sort of challenge. But one of the things they quickly figure out is that those zombies are probably the local farmers. And they're right about that. They are. They come into this area, and then Lork finds this passage over here, and with a just lost all my vocabulary. It's got a grill and a gate and bars. Jeez, metal bars here with a door. And he looks in, and he can see that like it's got like a pile of matted, nasty hay for a bedding. Definitely a prison cell, but it's empty. And when the rest of the party stays out in this area, when he turns to leave and come back to the others, one of these things comes out of the wall, and this is a shadow. And it comes out of the wall and attacks him. And I think it did hit him. And I'm running, obviously, it's cast Crusades, but I don't use level drain in my games because I hate it. I hate it as a game master, and I hate it as a player. So I use ability drain for my undead, and he gets whacked for, it automatically happens. There's no saving throw with the shadow. I pull my undead a lot from the Hyperborea RPG, which is a great RPG that at some point I'll run a regular game of. Really good RPG. I really like how they do their monsters and pretty much everything with the game. But Lork gets hit and it does a strength point damage. That doesn't really affect Lork much because he has a belt of giant strength, so it's the belt that gives him his strength. It's not just, well, it does just give him a bonus, but it raises his strength to a certain score. I don't remember what it is. It's ridiculous. His actual strength, like if he was to take the belt off, then it would have really affected him. But with the belt on, it doesn't affect him so much. But more of them come out. 3 more come out in this area. And Artemis, this is Artemis. Miniature I painted up for Artemis, my buddy Thad. His character is Ranger. It's a Reaper miniature that I did a little bit of weapon swapping with. Gave him this overly large spear. And he actually ends up with 2 of them on him. He gets hit a few times and loses some strength. I think he lost at least 2 points. And I don't know if anybody else, I don't remember if anybody else did. Maybe Sprawl did, because I know he was in the attack. Barry was close, but they take a little bit of strength damage, but overall, the party makes pretty quick work of them, because they're not super powerful either, compared to the party. So, just enough to put a little bit of fear into them. I like that. I like the ability drain. I'll talk about that for a second. I like that over level drain for a couple reasons. One, I always found level drain as a game master a real pain to deal with at the table in the moment. It's just more work than I want to be involved in. And it doesn't make any sense to me. It never did. Like, why would you forget how to do a whole thing? And to me, it's overly punishing. Yeah, ability drain might be bad, and some undead deal out a lot more ability drain than like the shadow does. But to me, I would rather deal with that as a player. It's almost like a bit of it could be a campaign reset if you started whacking people with level drain. I don't want to, go back to just fighting goblins and stuff, because these guys aren't going to be able to handle anything harder because they lost a bunch of levels. And it is overly punishing. Like, you think about it, like one hit from a monster, like My son put it in good perspective. Like, he needs about 150,000 experience points to get from, whatever it is, 7th to 8th level. And he gets hit by one shadow or whatever, say the shadow did level drain, and he loses all of it. That's a pretty, I'd rather take the ability drain, which can be restored. It actually comes back at a rate of points per day, usually except for the last point, and then you have to have a spell cast on you. So I'd much rather deal with ability drain than level drain any day of the week. I've felt that way for the 40 plus years I've been playing D&D style games. So that's why I do it. Back to the session. They clear those guys out. They don't find anything else of interest down here. Lork does find tracks because, contrary to this terrain, the floor is a bit sandy, so he is able to find tracks, and they lead out this tunnel here. And they follow that tunnel for quite a ways, probably 500-600 yards at least, and until it comes to a dead end with a shaft leading upwards. They go up. They find themselves in a very small, concealed stable in the hills, out of sight of the farm, and where they can see there was horses stabled, and there's no horses there now. So they start following those tracks, and it's now daytime, and they eventually stumble across these horses, and there's nobody around, and there's no tracks leading off. So they're like, they must have turned back into demons and flown away. And that time where the party had to wait for the fire to die down so they could actually get in and investigate gave everybody ample opportunity to get away with Eudora. So they're kind of left with, we have no idea where they went. Like, we've lost all ability to figure out where they've gone. This was our only lead. And they decide, they go back, they haven't seen Sir Derek, but they go back and they check the surrounding house, and all the local farms, there's probably half a dozen or so, are vacant. Like, and they determine that it's not like they were, people left on vacation or anything. Like, these people take, and they confirm their belief that the zombies that they fought were the farmers. So this started another interesting part of the game, of the session, where they decide to collect up like all their livestock, like mostly horses. So they collect a bunch of horses and such, and then they return to Moss Haven. And Sprawl wants to go talk to the mayor and inform him of what's going on. And so he goes and meets with the mayor and the sheriff, who is another, they're both halflings. And he goes and meets with them. And as he goes, Barry tells him that, well, I'm going to take the horses to the merchant, horse seller or whatever. And Sproul specifically tells him, don't sell them. Like, just turn them over, because these farmers probably had family in the town and stuff, and they'll probably want that stuff. Well, Barry ignores that advice, and he tries to sell the horses to the merchant. And the merchant is like, asks him, like, because he comes in with, over, like, probably close to a dozen horses. And he questions him a bit, and he's like, where did you get these horses? And he sort of tells him the story about how the farms are all abandoned, and they brought him in. And from there, this does not please the merchant at all, because he basically viewed it as they were looting farms. And he recognizes now some of these brands on the horses, and he knows the people there. It's a small community. It's like, I grew up in a town of about 3,000 people, unless it was a ski weekend. And then it went to about 30,000. And then, but on the average, we had about 3,000 people in town. And so you knew you knew at least a lot of times in passing people and stuff. Not personally, obviously, but so he recognizes these brands. This does not go well. And it was interesting because, my perspective, and my friend Dave will chime in, this seemed very much like, it was more like, we're adventurers, we can do what we want type attitude that kind of came across, and like trying to justify taking stuff. And the way I equated it was, if your neighbor dies, you don't have the right to go in and take their property, go in their house and take their property. So that was another pretty healthy debate. We had these two very moral and philosophical debates within the session. It made it very interesting. Ultimately, the merchant is like, no, and he calls for the sheriff. And the only thing that really kept Barry from being arrested was the information that Sproul had given them had put the party in a good light that way. So that gave them enough grace where the sheriff just didn't lock Barry up for theft. And they decide then, they have this discussion of, well, you know, Sir Derek did come back, and he also had reported that he'd found all the farms vacant. He was viewed, I don't know if he was viewed with suspicion. I know Barry was kind of like, well, he didn't stick around to try to help rescue Eudora, but part of it was like they had to wait 8 or 9 hours. He was going to go do something, so he wanted to go check on the farms. Like, he wasn't just going to sit around. Not saying what they did was wrong, because they didn't really have any other options. They had to do that. Or abandon her altogether, which would have been another moral quandary, I think. So they decide, they ultimately decide at the end that they're not going to go help Sir Derek on his quest to investigate the dragon tomb to the south, which fits because after everything that happened, Sir Derek was kind of like very unsure if he wanted to work with the entire party. There were certain members that he probably wouldn't have like an issue working with, but there was others that he very questionable. He's a paladin, right? So that moral purity is a big thing in with a paladin, if played correctly. And so what they do is they're like, well, the only thing that Eudora gave us for a lead was the ruined town of Dustthorn. So that was an original thing that they, you know, she had hired mercenaries to take her there. Those mercenaries had been killed by wolf spiders, and then the party found her, and she and her addled brain often confuses the party members for the mercenaries that she hired. So they're like, that's the only clue we have, so we need to go to Dustthorn. So that's where they're going to go. That's where we left off. They returned to Arden. Their return trip from Moss Haven to Arden was completely uneventful. They got back to Arden. This will do a couple things. It'll set us up for the next session perfectly. It also tied in with like the B team stuff a little bit, because when they returned to Arden, the B team's still gone. Like the B team actually is gone for like a month. Like they'll come back after the regular guys. The A team has trekked off to Dustthorn. So this will do that'll kind of like align everything, at least in my head. And it'll do another thing too, is it'll give the A-team group guys who are holding on to that magical cleaver that they got from the butcher, the demon they killed in Dornval, that they want to give to Pounder because he's the only one that can really use it. They can leave that for him. And I will retcon the B-team session to where when they finally return to Arden, that's waiting for them. That's waiting for Pounder at Scrandon Hall. That was their plan, was to turn that over, to get that to him so he could use it. But yeah, that was the session. A very interesting session. I think kind of a shit show, to be honest. I think maybe as players they felt, I know my son, talking to him afterwards, he felt a little defeated where they didn't really, you know, they're used to accomplishing their goals, and this thing just went pear-shaped from the beginning, and then it never improved. So, but that happens. That's realistic. Like, you're not going to, you know, as much as you want to win all the time or meet, you know, achieve your goals, that doesn't always happen. So, and you get these turns. Like, I think there was some loss of, you know, sense of like we lost because they lost Eudora. Like, they have no idea where she is or what's happening to her. So there was that. It would be interesting to actually. We ran a little bit late in the session, so we didn't get to do much of a deep dive afterwards of how they felt as characters. I'd be really interested to hear, because this is all from my perspective and like the little bit of conversation I had with my son about it afterwards. He definitely felt like it was a total crapshoot, and he was like, "What the hell are we doing?" And like he said, he was in the camp that Ronan murdered that guy. And one of the things they actually, you know, were like, well, we learned all this stuff afterwards. And they're like, yeah, but afterwards you can't use any of that, because yeah, the probably guy wasn't on the up and up for sure. But initially not, and I would say it was mostly Ronan and Barry that were in the mind that Ronan was in the right. And I let them decide that. Like I have my thoughts on it. And definitely the play set. But I like that. It's very realistic interaction between the characters, and to me it was a very interesting. Everybody had fun, which was great, but I think as characters they probably felt a little defeated. But hopefully some of them will chime in on the video and share their thoughts about it. But yeah, that was the session 52. I had said in my other recap video, I'm not running the B team for a little bit. We will see the B team again, so I'm actually not running another session until January when we do our gaming weekend. Then we're going to do they'll go to Dustthorn. The A team's going to Dustthorn. That'll be a full day, like probably, at least a 7-hour session, at least probably 7-8 hour session. Do a full day that day, cover some ground. They should fully take care of whatever Dustthorn is, or at least figure it out. They may not be victorious. They, who knows? But we'll play that whole thing out at that session, which will be great. So so there won't be as many. I'm trying to get up my words again. There won't be as many recap videos for the rest of the month, but I'm prepping some Forbidden Lands stuff, and I'm not sure when that's going to kick off, but when it does, we'll do recaps for Forbidden Lands too. So if you guys are interested in that game and learning that system with us, give it a watch. But hey, like I said, again, appreciate you all watching, and I'll catch you at the next one. Thank you.